Spain has Europe's second highest coronavirus death toll behind Italy, and its nearly 8,000 fatalities have now surpassed China. With the elderly at high risk, nursing homes in Spain have been overwhelmed by the number of infections. There are reports of dire conditions, with dead bodies left in beds for hours. Relatives are worried about their loved ones, but they've been banned from visiting. Our correspondent Jan Philipp Schulz has this report from Seville.
What is happening behind these windows concerns many Spaniards. Almost 2,000 nursing home residents have died after contracting the coronavirus. Every day, more homes are affected. Rafael Moreno's uncle has Parkinson's and lives in a nursing home in southern Spain. A while ago, he learned that the first cases of coronavirus had been diagnosed there too. Since then, he tells me, the residents of the nursing home and their relatives have become increasingly worried.
And they cannot really go outside their room. So they are very isolated with all this information getting from TV. They must be very nervous.
So what are they doing to deal with the difficult situation?
For us, for young people, we used to use WhatsApp or internet. But for the people, for the most vulnerable people who don't have access to this kind of information or technology, this crisis is being quite different.
Care workers complain about terrible conditions in many homes. They say there's not enough protective clothing and that hundreds of their colleagues are infected. Authorities are investigating reports that some workers went home after the first cases were identified, leaving residents forgotten in their beds. The dramatic situation in many nursing homes has shocked people here in Spain. The Spanish society takes pride in its strong family ties and in taking well care of elderly people. Possible criminal neglect and the feeling of helplessness among family members have started to affect the self-image. And a lot of Spaniards fear that the situation in nursing homes might get worse in the coming days. In the nursing home where Rafael Moreno's uncle lives, the management has set up a WhatsApp group. Now, Rafael and the other relatives feel a little bit closer to their loved ones.
In the United States, where the death toll from COVID-19 now exceeds 3,000, over a third of those victims were from New York State, whose governor has issued an urgent appeal for medical volunteers. Governor Andrew Cuomo called the number of deaths staggering. So far, around 80,000 former medical professionals have answered Cuomo's call. Meanwhile, a U.S. Navy hospital ship has arrived to help relieve pressure on the city's overwhelmed hospitals.
A welcome sight for New York as the battle against the coronavirus ramps up. A U.S. Navy medical ship with 1,000 beds docked in New York Harbor on Monday. The mayor spoke of the city's frayed nerves, with hospitals already stretched to a breaking point.
We've all been through a lot these last few weeks, and we needed this boost. We needed this hope that's being created by our brothers and sisters in the U.S. Navy and the Marine Corps.
Central Park in the middle of Manhattan is the latest site to be taken over by a field hospital. But New York has been caught in a war of words. President Donald Trump says that medical equipment already in place should be enough for the city. But the mayor and the state governor say they both need more help from the federal government to be ready for what's coming.
It is a fundamental blunder to only prepare for today. That's why, in some ways, we are where we are. We've been behind this virus from day one. You have the scientists and the data projections showing you a curve. The curve goes like this. You're over here. Prepare for the high point of the curve and do it now. When are you going to do it? The night before?
Medics have become the heroines and heroes of the day, and Monday was even National Doctors' Day. But in New York, they've had no chance to celebrate. They're on the front lines in a city where the coronavirus death toll is rising rapidly.
Meanwhile, other states such as Michigan, Louisiana and New Jersey also report a spike in coronavirus cases and brace to become the nation's new hotspots. And all of this is happening while the US is still struggling to get testing ramped up and to better coordinate the efforts to combat the pandemic. But President Donald Trump dismisses any criticism of the federal government, describing the job they are doing as tremendous. On Monday, President Trump urged the American people to vigorously follow the federal social distancing guidelines that were extended through April. He said he was not thinking about reopening the US economy very soon. Instead, suggested he might be toughening up the measures in the coming weeks.
All right, let's take a look now at some other coronavirus developments around the world. Italy, the country with the most deaths, will extend its lockdown until at least April 12th. Italians have been under lockdown now for 3 weeks already. France has reported its worst daily death toll, more than 400 people. France has become now the 4th country to report more than 3,000 fatalities. Brazil's health minister has defied President Jair Bolsonaro and urged Brazilians to practice social distancing, something Bolsonaro is not doing. He's been downplaying the pandemic and opposes regional lockdown measures. And the World Health Organization is warning that even though the focus is now on Europe and the United States, the coronavirus pandemic is still, quote, far from over in Asia and the Pacific region. Hungarian lawmakers have granted Prime Minister Viktor Orban sweeping emergency powers amid this pandemic. The bill sets no end date. That allows Orban to rule by decree indefinitely. Critics are calling it a power grab. Rights watchdog Amnesty International has said the legislation poses a threat to human rights in the country.
While coronavirus was taking hold of Europe, the Hungarian parliament here in Budapest decided to put democracy itself under a lockdown. The Assembly has voted for the provisions in the proposals by a majority of 137 yes votes to 53 noes, no abstentions. By a large majority, lawmakers approved a bill handing sweeping powers to Prime Minister Viktor Orban, a highly controversial move.
For all these measures, you are asking for an authorization without any time limits, which is unprecedented in Europe.
The Hungarian Prime Minister says he needs these powers to fight coronavirus. After declaring a state of emergency earlier in March, the new law gives him the right to rule by decree for as long as he wants. During this period, elections cannot take place and parliamentary oversight is limited. Jail terms up to 5 years can be imposed for spreading falsehoods about coronavirus. Journalists and human rights defenders fear this could be used to muzzle them. Speaking to DW, Hungarian Justice Minister Judith Varga defended her government's move.
The law is nothing more about than to provide for the government the necessary room for acting immediately for the sake of citizens' health, life, and for the stability of the national economy.
Prime Minister Orban has promised to hand power back to Parliament as soon as the fight against coronavirus is won. But he made clear this wouldn't be anytime soon.
Well, one success story in battling coronavirus is Taiwan. Just over 300 cases have been reported, with 5 deaths so far. The island has capitalized on its experience battling the SARS epidemic in 2003. Taiwan moved early to roll out a coordinated effort this time to teach hospitals how to cope with the new coronavirus. Taiwan was also quick to disinfect public transport and to quarantine travelers. Once cases started appearing, containment teams isolated them and tracked down their social contacts. All of that was done without support from the World Health Organization. Taiwan is not in the WHO because it's not recognized by the United Nations, and that's because China views it as a renegade province. We're joined now by Mr. Chan Cheng-Chuan. He's the Dean of the College of Public Health at National Taiwan University. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us. Now, back in 2003, Taiwan was hit hard by the SARS epidemic. What lessons did Taiwan learn then from that outbreak?
You know, we learned harsh lessons from the SARS outbreak. doctors, nurses die, while taking care of the SARS patients. So the whole society is high alert in the past few years just to be ready for the next attack from emergent diseases. And it took us 17 years to be in this stage. And one thing we learned first is there's any news from China, and you have to be very cautious. And you like to take a few cases that report as serious as you can. So when we learned first of this COVID-19, at that time, we don't have the name for that, but our government decided it's a real thing. So we took very early actions on December 31st. It's earlier than any countries, and later on, we insist we have to be on site to look at the situations, and we insisted. And Chinese government let some of our experts to go there, but they were not allowed to see what they want. So once they returned, we thought this is serious because person to person is happening there. So we took like all the possible actions we can that time when WHO was not advising any travel advice, and we decided to ban any travelers from China.
I want to ask you, just to hop in here quickly, because Taiwan is not a member of the World Health Organization because Beijing objects politically. Did the WHO here miss an opportunity to maybe better contain this outbreak by not including Taiwan in its consultations?
Yeah, that's... if we look at the past few months, WHO has made several mistakes of declaring the pandemics, giving not the right advice to countries. If they could include Taiwan in the formal discussion, and some of our successful measures could be adopted by some of the countries who are suffering now. So by excluding Taiwan, it's not good for WHO, it's not good for the rest of the world, yeah.
Do you think politics won out here over global health?
Yeah, until now, I still see there's politics over the public health. WHO still put our data under China, and it's not right. And even under some of these descriptions, our name is Taiwan, and there's 23 counties, but they put our name as Taipei and environs. In WHO, you cannot get the correct data. You have to be very serious of looking at all the data reporting from country. They have to verify, and if you are using not the right data, you will make wrong decisions. So they make wrong decisions on Taiwan and probably on China. All
right, well, we have to leave it there. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Chan Cheng-Chuan, Dean of College of Public Health at the National Taiwan University. Thanks for speaking with us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. Yeah.
All right, we have to take a look now at some other stories making news around the world. Ford and General Electric will produce 50,000 emergency ventilators in the next 100 days. They join car maker GM in the race to repurpose factory lines to produce ventilators. Hospitals across the U.S. are urgently seeking the devices as they deal with an onslaught of coronavirus patients. Amazon workers in the United States are worried about getting infected. They have accused the company of not providing proper protections and are threatening to strike. Business for the online seller has been strong in recent weeks as people do more of their shopping from their computers. The largest Dutch flour merchant says that his industry could lose between 2 and 3 billion euros due to the current coronavirus crisis and social distancing measures. In the height of what would be flour season, most of the harvest remains unsold and has to be composted. A painting by Dutch master Vincent van Gogh called Spring Garden has been stolen from a museum in the Netherlands. Thieves broke into the Singer Lauren Museum near Amsterdam, which is closed because of the coronavirus. The painting from 1884 is valued at, get this, up to 6 million euros. The 2020 Tokyo Olympics will now officially start on the 23rd of July. 2021. The Paralympics will follow in August. The International Olympic Committee and Japanese organizers settled on that date a week after agreeing to postpone the Games due to the pandemic.
waving goodbye to this year's Games. The name Tokyo 2020 may be staying the same, the dates most certainly not. After a weekend of speculation, confirmation the Tokyo Olympics will take place almost exactly 1 year later than originally planned.
I proposed holding the Games in the summer of next year, and it was agreed.
The decision followed a meeting of the Tokyo 2020 Organising Committee, which was then rubber-stamped by the IOC after a call with all Olympic federations. IOC President Thomas Bach said, "Humankind currently finds itself in a dark tunnel. These Olympic Games, Tokyo 2020, can be a light at the end of this tunnel." A so-called cherry blossom Olympics in the spring had been considered to avoid the summer heat, but organisers preferred to have more time to deal with the postponement.
We feel it's better to hold the Games next year at summertime for the sake of transportation, volunteers and ticket holders around the world. For athletes to fully prepare, we need to give them as much time as possible.
There are many challenges ahead, including ensuring that venues will still be available to use next year. But for the athletes at least, there is now some clarity in the most unclear of times.